All right. Hello. I'm here with Keith Knight. His reputation probably precedes him, but he is a comic artist and recently has a new show on Hulu. And I guess before we start, how have you been faring this past year with COVID and this renewed racial reckoning? And sort of has that affected your art?
Uh, I mean, it's kind of interesting because I think cartoonists are uniquely qualified to be stuck at home, sitting around, by themselves. So my existence didn't change a whole lot as far as cartooning wise, but and also we homeschooled our kids before all this happened, so that didn't change. So the only thing is like my kids didn't have the run of the neighborhood during the week, like like they did when kids were at school. Um, but other than that, I mean, it's weird, 2020 was like the most successful year I've ever had. And so I have sort of survivor's remorse because this we finished the show a week before our lockdown and it all got edited during the week. I mean during the spring. And yeah, it's just I mean all the work that I've been doing about police brutality and slideshows and the comics, like my work didn't change so much as when everybody started writing and doing comics about it, and I just wanted to make sure other issues that didn't get swept under the rug. So while everybody was writing about police brutality, I was doing other things too.
Right, and that is an interesting point that, Woke was kind of uh, finished filming back in, I think, February of last year. So and in it there is a moment where your character is sort of brutalized by police, and so I guess and you talk about that. You said you've been writing about police brutality for a while, and I guess can you tell us about the first instance when you incorporated police brutality, or I guess addressed police brutality in your art, and sort of what it was like seeing, it continue today?
Oh, um, I don't know. I mean, I first addressed it probably in the early '90s, and to see it today, I mean, the incident that the show pivots on, me being profiled by the police, happened to me 20 years ago. And one of the things that prompted me to do the slideshow that I do, They Shoot Black People, Don't They? Was just to show people that, like, what is happening now was happening 20 years ago, which was happening 40 years ago, which was happening 100 years ago. And that police grew out of slave patrols. And slave patrols were poor whites hired to keep the um, black and brown groups in check, and they were paid to chase down runaway slaves. And if you look at the Department of Justice's analysis of the police departments of Ferguson and Baltimore, that's it's essentially that's what they do is nickel and dime black and brown communities. Like that's they're doing exactly what they were hired to do. And that's a sad sort of reckoning that America needs to come to terms with if we're going to make any progress. Because I mean, you see what's happening. Like, the same week that Derek Chauvin gets convicted, like there's still just people are just being killed by police. Like it's no different. Like they don't feel. I don't think there's any police officer that feels like, oh no, like, my job has changed. I can't do what I do anymore. It's written into the fabric of America.
Right there, it seems like there is a part of America that feels like I guess the conviction of Derek Chauvin is sort of justice, and there's a swath of people who feel like it's not, that this is sort of an aberration from the norm. And I guess, like, uh, is that something that you plan to sort of wrestle with in your comics now or going forward, or
Oh, yeah, I have. I mean, you know, just the fact that we had to hold our breath to see what might happen to Derek Chauvin is pretty. it, it speaks to how bad it is here. It's like we're not even sure, with 10 minutes of video, multiple angles, several dozen witnesses, and all the police testifying against him. We're not sure if he's gonna come get away with it. Like, that is pathetic. And and frankly, the bar is set so high that there are all these egregious things that will continue to happen, and people will sit there and go, well, you didn't have the 10 minutes of video, or you didn't have all the police. It's just like, it's crazy, it's absurd. So and this whole idea of defund the police, like, and everyone being all bent out of shape about it. Like, we've been defunding schools for decades. We've been defunding arts for decades. We've been defunding the parks and recreation for decades. And, you know, it's it's the money is going other places, and it's generally going to fund the police. So when people say defund the police, it means take the money, that instead of them getting tanks and more guns and flak jackets and all that stuff, take the money and put it into resources that will help the neighborhoods that they're terrorizing.
right? And this may sort of be a weird question, but a few moments ago you said how, you know, you're kind of addressing things in comics that been addressing for years, that have been happening for years and years and years. And I guess, what sort of advice do you have, or I guess wisdom can you impart on other comic creators of color who are sort of like looking to um, you know, talk about these things in their comics?
Oh, just speak your truth, really, and but also don't feel like you have to speak out on this stuff. I mean, I think there's plenty of room for black joy, for black quirkiness, for all types of other things. You see what's going on with television right now, right? Like, every black show is steeped in trauma and pain and horrible things happening to them. And hopefully, there's going to be a backlash to that. Even my show was, I don't think I would have got the show if it wasn't didn't have to do with police brutality. But there need to be people in positions in Hollywood and frankly, in comics, at comics, in charge of approving comics and getting the stuff done that allows diverse creators to do whatever they want to do.
And the main character in Woke is based off of you. The character's name is Keith, instead of Keith, and in the beginning he's sort of, I don't know if it's sort of like rose-colored glasses, but it's kind of like not wanting to contend with that in his art, and sort of, illustrate that, black people are capable of producing and relishing in joy. And then the police brutality happens. Is that sort of, was that sort of your perspective uh, earlier, or is that sort
But
of?
it's a much more extreme perspective in the show. And I had been doing stuff about police and stuff long before I had my incident with the police. But there was a sense of, I'm in San Francisco, it's bohemian happiness, in the 90s. And so it's sort of, it was a surprise, like, in the sense that, like, wow, I've been doing these comics for so long, and now I'm on the inside of it. And I never stopped being a cartoonist, sort of observing. going, oh wow, like there's cops coming from here and over here and over here, and now I'm going to look at everybody looking at me sitting on the sidewalk and blah blah blah. Like it was, it was more like I never felt in the show. It's much more extreme than what really happened to me. Uh, but the thing that was the biggest surprise was my white roommate jumped off the bus and ran at the cops, screaming at the cops, and the cops treated him like he was their manager, and just like they were like, oh, okay, everything's blah, blah, blah. And you just like, oh my god, if he was black or brown, like he would have been tased or beaten or worse. So it's sort of crazy, but we made it so the character goes on this huge arc, and that's sort of what you do in television is you take a character from and have him go from here to here. So we made him sort of very rose colored, glassy.
Right. And speaking of sort of this dynamic arc that you have to sort of adapt to, what was it like adapting your life and comics to TV, and like how much involvement did you have in that?
I was very involved in the writers' room. Like I co-wrote the first script and then worked on all the episodes after. And I worked on everything, like a lot of different things. I did all the artwork in it, obviously, but I approved sets. I mean, where we shot stuff and yeah, creating the apartment and I was in on the um, actors auditioning and picking music and costumes, just like every aspect. I was really interested in all aspects of it, and I'm a producer on it too, an executive producer. So it was really fun to do all that. I mean, the most fun I had was just like walking into the studio office and just seeing like all the people that are employed, because of my silly drawings. There were like hundreds of people, from building sets to accounting to props and all the art stuff. It was just really fun to put in a lot of little, there were a lot of Easter eggs throughout the show. So you'll see stuff that were either in Think strips or in K Chronicles stuff, and or in the nightlife. And there were all these little things. My band, the Marginal Prophets, has music in it, and just little tiny things that you know people from different parts of my life would get. So there are Boston people that will get some jokes, and there are San Francisco people that will get some jokes, and there are cartoon people that will get some jokes, and black folks that will get jokes. And sometimes you get all the jokes, sometimes you get a few of them, but it was fun. It was fun.
And you also like appear in it in the show. Um,
Yes, the biggest Easter egg is in episode 7, where there's a giant koala. There's a person dressed as a koala, and that was me. And I got to punch my character, um, played by Lamorne Ward. So that's yeah, that was fun.
and and was that a moment when you were in a koala suit on set? Is that sort of a moment that you were like, yes, this is what I've always wanted to do, or what was that moment like?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all very meta, I guess. Yeah, it's something I've always wanted to do, and it's just funny how like you know we didn't even write those episodes until we were up on set, and then once there was the koala, like yeah, there's gonna be someone dressed as a koala. Like that was like, oh, there's my appearance right there. I'm gonna be the koala. So it's and that's my favorite episode because it was of how difficult it was because we shot it on a bus, and the bus had to go around and around in a circle, and it's just a lot of different things. And Lamore does a great performance in it because he has this whole breakdown in it, and I don't know, it was just really fun. It was fun.
Right, and drifting a little away from the show, but sort of riding this wave of like serendipitous joy, I guess, or maybe not joy in this instance, but a few moments ago, I learned that you were a Michael Jackson tribute artist a while back,
Yes.
and I was wondering if you could tell us how like that came to be and what was that experience like.
Well, it's a, both joy and pain actually, because I have a long gestating graphic novel that I've been working on forever, and when I started working on that, is when the beginnings of the show started, and the show just started, was taking up this much time, and then suddenly we just kept on, oh, we they want us to go to script. Oh, we're going to do a pilot. Oh, we're going to do a series, and it just grew from there. But when I was in high school a very long time ago, our high school had this. It was, and I graduated in 1984, by the way, which was the height of Thriller. And our high school has a variety show. I grew up in Malden, Massachusetts, by the way. So for all you Malden folks out there, um, the finale of the variety show was Thriller, and so they needed a Michael Jackson impersonator, and I didn't I didn't get the part, but I wanted to try out, but they wouldn't let me. Um, so instead of that, like we were doing what you would call it, a dance group. We were in a dance group during the variety show, and instead of doing my dress in my breakdancing outfit, I just decided to dress in my Billie Jean outfit that I got to be a Michael Jackson impersonator, and I just did Michael Jackson moves. I didn't do any breakdancing moves, and so I usurped the finale by it's by doing the Michael Jackson thing. And at the end of the show, we won star of the show, and then all these parents started asking me to be a Michael Jackson for their kid's birthday party. And then I started dancing at fairs and recitals and colleges. And in 1984, Christmas 1984, I was Jordan Marsh, the late great Jordan Marsh, department store. I was their official Michael Jackson impersonator at Downtown Crossing in 1984. So, uh, yeah, my life peaked when I was 18 years old. It was all downhill from there.
I mean, it sounds like it's peaking again. Were you in Malden when Converse was still like headquartered there?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Yeah, we used to dumpster dive for Converse, because back in the day when things came out irregular with stitching and stuff, they didn't sell irregulars. They would just toss them in a dumpster, and we would just get them. So yeah, so my dream is to do a collab with Converse and create a shoe. So if Converse is listening, come and
Do you
hit me up.
have any of those rejected shoes still or no?
No, not
Oh
not
man,
anymore. I
they would
do have,
probably be worth a lot.
yeah, I do have Converse though. Like
Okay.
I will be Converse till I die. But they were bought by Nike, so it's a little bittersweet. You're giving money to Nike if you bought Converse.
And Keith, I guess the term woke, going back to the show, has become such a polarizing term, I guess, where some people use it as a pejorative, or it's sort of like is used to like, I don't know, maybe used to mean less than what it originally meant. And I was wondering how the naming of the show came about, and sort of like what discussions were had and what alternatives might have been there, or
We had the name for like since the beginning of it for a long time, and we saw how people that were not really happy with the word, and so the Hulu or Sony hired a company to do research and find another title, and like all the and we suggested all these other titles. It takes place in San Francisco, the San Francisco Bay Area. So I remember saying, calling it the gray area, because it's not, everything's not black and white, it's gray. Uh, but I mean, woke tested the best. It's like simple and easy, and as much as people don't like it, um, what's nice about it is when the show came out, the people who wanted to see it saw it and they totally dug it and they spread it around. They would tell their friends. And then the people who were completely turned off by it ran out of stuff to watch like in the pandemic. And they were like, all right, I'll try to watch this. And then they dug it. And then you see people posting like, hey, you guys should check out Woke. It's like not what you think it is. It's actually funny, blah, 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 that type of thing. So it's just really interesting how even today, even though it's been out since September, people are still discovering it and digging it. So that's really cool.
And is there going to be a second season to Woke?
There is going to be a second season, and I am skipping out on the writers' room as we speak because to do this, which is it's great. Where what I like about it is we are now, since we did the show before the summer of 2020, we're going to be able to comment on sort of what this post summer of 2020 uh, landscape is. So we're gonna, there's a lot of satire to really dig into. So we're gonna have a lot of fun with it.
Right. And before the summer of 2020 happened, did you have an idea of what you wanted the second season to look like? And did it change a bit, or did you add on, or you
No, we
sort of
had we had no. Listen, we it was so hard to even get the first season done. We had no idea that you know, the way the summer of 2020 played out, I wrote to all the producers. I said, you know what? Like our first season is going to play out right now. Like it's just kind of crazy how everything sort of converged at that time. But yeah, we had we weren't looking towards a season two. We were just like, I was just so happy to end season one the way we did, sort of it coming around with the cop and um, and then him walking out at the end. It could have ended there, and I would have been perfectly like, we did what we did. We did what we wanted to do. The fact that we got a second season is amazing. It's a cherry on top of great gravy. And then we won a couple of awards, the Rose d'Or, um, we're nominated for a Rocky Award because we shot up in Canada, and I was up for an NAACP Image Award. Um, Unfortunately, all these award shows were virtual, so I didn't have to. I didn't get to go anywhere good, but and hobnob with Beyonce, but yeah, it's all right.
it, I hope it works out next year. It seems like you're on sort of that trajectory, so my fingers are crossed for you. And have you learned anything from putting together the show that has sort of, um, I guess, changed or informed your comic process, or no?
No, no, no. You don't. You just realize just how little comics get paid as a cartoonist and how much money is in Hollywood stuff. It's crazy. And so when I went back to start drawing my comics again, I was like, why am I doing this? But then you have to remember that Hollywood is looking for intellectual property. And I wouldn't have got the show if I didn't have like decades worth of comic strips to draw from. So I would just say to everybody, hold on to the rights to your work and just keep on creating and telling your story. Tell your story because too many times other people tell your story and they get it completely wrong. Tell your story and Hollywood, will come knocking because there's so much as people of color. There's so much of our stories that have not been told. So it's painfully obvious that we as creators are the next thing to turn to. The next. It's just there's so many amazing stories out there that have to be told.
Right, there's like an opportunity for comic creators to be sort of like this bastion for telling stories of marginalized people.
Yeah.
And 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 I guess, like, how does that feel for you at this moment, as a person who's been making comics for decades? Like, how does it feel, like, knowing that comics can have that sort of power now?
I mean, it feels validating. I've always felt that way anyway. But the great thing about being a cartoonist is like you have the power of creativity in the palm of your hand. Like, this pencil, however much this cost, I took it from the University of Virginia. And this piece of paper, which, is, I probably took that too. But, I can draw something taking place on the moon. I can draw something taking place in Egypt. I can draw something taking place in my stomach. And it's, with a TV show, it will take special effects or traveling with a crew overseas or doing whatever, and it costs all this money. For a cartoonist, it takes, $1 to do it, and you're just creating, and you can do anything with it, and you just never know what's going to happen to it. Like, it could end up, you know getting on the screen, being developed. But ultimately, like, having this outlet as a cartoonist is amazing for your mental health. Like, if I didn't have all this stuff to work through, all the craziness that happens in this world, I don't know what I'd do. I think that's why there's a lot of people who, act out in other ways, is because they're not expressing themselves in the way they need to do. And that could be through art or music or dance or just, punching something like boxing, or whatever. But just whatever you need to do it and get it out.
Right, that's pretty good advice. And I guess, stepping aside from creation, like, what and like, kind of going back to you saying people ran out of stuff to watch during the pandemic, what have you been watching during the pandemic? And have you been watching things that you usually wouldn't watch? Because I've been watching a lot of reality TV, which I would not usually do, but it's a nice, like, respite from serious life, I
Yeah.
guess.
I don't know. I think a lot of times first. Um, I was watching a lot of first episodes and second episodes, like, of series, to kind of see how they introduced characters, and I was looking at things to help with the writing, um, because once you start uh, being in the room with all these writers, and you're breaking stories and you're talking, like, there's all these certain things that you got to do, and it's really interesting. And so I just really started observing that, and so I can't. What can I say? The last series I watched was Ted Lasso, and Ted Lasso on Apple Plus has a really great pilot, you know, um, and it's based on this character that was just on ESPN doing this comedy stuff. But the way they developed the character, and the way there's all these, like, these typical characters that are in the show, but like the way they laid them out and executed it was really interesting and really cool. Um, what was the last movie I saw? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't. You know what? I watch a lot of sports. A lot of sports, like all the time. I think that's the best reality show to me is like the sports. It's. I don't think you know. It's the most natural reality show. That's what I will say. It's not as manipulated as reality shows tend to be.
I'm not a sports ball fan, but Celtics or the Golden State Warriors,
Ooh. Well, I actually
or neither.
it's I'm in North Carolina now, so I watch them admiringly from afar. Like I am the only the only thing I don't want to see is the Lakers win. But I will say that last season, even though I was not a Kobe fan, I'm glad LA won for Kobe, and I admire LeBron James, but I'm not a Laker fan. But it was the one year, and I will say I cheered the Dodgers on because their their manager was the only reason why the Red Sox won the 2004 World Series, and he's the first uh, Latino coach to win for the Dodgers, and it's like Red Sox West because they have Mookie out there now and a few other players out there, so it's like Red Sox West. So you know, what
And then
can I
it's the
say?
opposite color, red and blue. But
But
uh,
but yeah, no. Listen, I'm shocked. I thought the Red Sox were going to be terrible. They're doing amazing. The Bruins are doing great. Like I kind of, you know, I have an old roommate that just melted down. That Brady went down to Tampa and just won. he it's really funny to see. So, you know,
I'm
it's
I'm from Tampa, so I've been able to see sort of the two sides of the coin in terms of reaction.
listen, you can make the argument that Tampa is like championship town, even though LA won MLB and basketball. Tampa won football and they won hockey and they were in the World Series. So like, you can't sleep on Tampa, you know.
Yeah, the 813. But going back to
But oh no, but Shock G died in
oh
Tampa.
yeah,
So
he's a Tampa person. He graduated or he went to Chamberlain High School and went to Hillsborough Community College. But
yeah,
uh,
no, that breaks my heart. Like
yeah,
Shock G was like, I don't know, just when I was they were coming they were when I was coming up in San Francisco, like it was I didn't know that Shock G was Humpty Hump until I went to a show in the Bay Area that they were filming, and he goes, "Okay, everybody, I got to go for the video. I have to go and change the Humpty Hump, and then they're gonna splice." And I was like, I can't believe I'm just learning this now. It's just really amazing and funny.
an epiphany. And going back to comics, Keith, are there topics in your comics that or are there topics that you won't cover with comics?
Well, I mean, I won't cover anything that I don't think I have anything interesting to say about. I'm not going to wade into any waters that I feel like I don't think I have a decent take, and I won't, you know, expose my family like in some horrible way. Like, um, just I won't dwell into anybody's secret personal life. I tend to make fun of people that I love, and and I make fun of myself more than anything else. So that's that's it. And frankly, I'm old now, so my existence is far less interesting than it once was. Now, I'm not saying that you get old and then you get less interesting, but I'm just saying like there's a lot of other things to write about. And I mean, I guess it's kind of interesting having a TV show, but um, I just don't want to keep on saying, "Hey, I'm making a TV show. Here's all the stuff," you know. So it's, but I'll do it once in a while. I'll do a lot of behind the scenes things. Actually, Malden Arts did screenings of all the episodes of the shows and did like Zoom screenings, and then I kept on sneaking into the Zoom screenings and telling it and I was typing all the behind the scenes stuff like it was pop-up video on MTV back in the day. So I was like, and it was snowing right here. If you look really close, it's snowing in Vancouver, and this is supposed to be California and stuff like that. So
And so what has that been like with people sort of coming to you with their sort of um I guess great feelings about the show, or have people come to you with like negative feelings about the show, and how?
oh, there's always going to be you know this stinks, like, yeah, especially because of the woke thing, and it's like, oh, if this was really woke, you'd be like blah blah blah, if this was like, I don't think a lot of people understand that we wouldn't call the show woke if we weren't taking the piss out of it. Like we're sort of, because no one could be absolutely woke, So, um, and what does that mean? It's very tiring to try to do that. So it's just kind of, um, and when the show came out, it was kind of like I remember a lot of reviewers were like, I think the show came out too late with everything that happened over the summer of 2020, like as if we like knew that that was going to happen. But I also know that um, because of the timing of it, like we made it a show that you'll be able to look at 10 years from now, and it'll still be relevant because police brutality and racism is not going to go away, you know And what happened in summer 2020 is gonna be it's you know there were a lot of companies and stuff that were like, oh, waving their Black Lives Matter flags and doing all their performative stuff, but what are they really doing, honestly? So, and that type of stuff is sort of um, gonna fade away, and it's gonna be back to the people who had been doing the work before then will be doing the work after and working towards change. But all these companies are like, oh, we're woke now. We have a Black Lives Matter thing on our wall. Like it's pathetic.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of disingenuousness sort of I guess in the allyship, I've noticed covering a lot of protests recently, a lot of people have been sort of pointing out or the sort of performativeness of it all. And earlier you were talking about, not only showing sort of the um black people suffering, but also like black joy. And how do you sort of find a balance in, I guess, telling those narratives?
Um, I don't know. I'll just be like, oh, it's time to do a life's little victory. So I'll just celebrate the little tiny things that happen, or I just write what I think is sticking in my head at that point, And I tend to be an optimistic human being, and so yeah, I tend to, notice some of the joyous things that happen and point that out. So
And what's the last joyous thing you encountered that you wrote about, or what is a joyous thing that you have not written about yet or illustrated yet?
let's see, um, what's a joyous thing? Well, there are these lemon ricotta pancakes that this cafe that we go to is just so good. And I know it's like lemon ricotta pancakes. That doesn't sound very good, but the small cafe in Pittsburgh, North Carolina, amazing, amazing, amazing. And so I'm just thinking of that. But I don't know. There's like all these, you know, we have chickens. We have chickens in our backyard, and I don't know when they lay eggs. You know what makes like this is a joyous thing is we had a rainy season and there were all these mushrooms all over the place. And there's only one mushroom that I know that I can just eat. And it's because I picked them with my in-laws in Germany. And they're called Pfifferlinger in Germany. Oh, chanterelles. They're called chanterelles here. So they started popping up all over the neighborhood. And my kids started going around to all the neighborhoods and just grabbing all these mushrooms that would go. They're super expensive too. And so we had the mushrooms, the eggs from the chickens, and onions from the garden, and just making that, stuff that you could just get off the street without paying for it. That to me is something to celebrate. That is amazing. So
Right, especially when people are like, this could be the end times, or you should prepare for an apocalypse.
oh, totally, totally. Listen, everybody should be like thinking about buying some like small, even if it's like a parking lot size full of land and just growing your own vegetables. Like that's
would you
that's what
would you say you're a prepper or no?
oh, a doomsday prepper?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a doomsday prepper. I just think that like it's just I think you just we're getting to a place now where you know we're being separated from the rich, and the rich are they're gonna be able to do whatever they want, and the rest of us are gonna be like, here, have some scraps, here, have some scraps. So you have to prepare for the very worst, and one of them is just like having decent food that isn't tainted with stuff, you know, and so I think it's having healthy food and water, clean water, having art, and having community, and I think that's super important. And so we should prioritize that. And so I'm doing what I can. I'm doing what I can. I don't. I'm not saying that. I guess that's preparing for doomsday, but
I don't think it is. I think that's pretty normal. And when did you moved from San Francisco to North Carolina?
no. I moved from San Francisco to LA, and then
Okay.
got the got people working towards getting me a show. Then I moved to North Carolina, and then I got the show after I moved to North Carolina. North Carolina is really secretly the best, the place to go if you want a TV show.
I was gonna ask, what has that been like, moving to North Carolina?
Well, from the outside looking in, it looks like a gigantic mess. I think North Carolina is only second to Florida in just bizarre stories coming out of it. But um, that's that's good because it keeps the property values down. So I was able to buy a house on cartoon money before the TV money, and it's because there's so many screw ups here that it kept the prices down. So as long as there's just weird, bad, horrible stories, but yeah, I mean, it's the research triangle. So we're around a bunch of colleges. There's arts, there's sports here, there's academia, and it's just a nice place to raise kids. I didn't think LA was the greatest place to raise children, and so and my mom moved down here from Arlington, Massachusetts. So she's in South Carolina, but we're close. So moving here.
Okay. Okay. And has it changed your art at all living in this new place or um
I will say this. I've learned more about the Black experience living in North Carolina, like the history of Black people in here in America, living in North Carolina in the 5 years I've been here, than the 16, no, the 25 years I was in California, or the 24 years I was in Boston. Um, you are confronted with things such as plantations and places where, and that happens everywhere else too, but there's I don't know, there are ghosts here. And what happens is you end up researching it and looking and learning about the stuff that went on. You hear about Durham and their Wall Street there, their Black Wall Street. You hear about Wilmington, North Carolina, which had the only other coup since, other than the January 6th one, the attempted coup. But you learn about this stuff, um, and no one will teach you about it in school. Like, no, America doesn't want to teach its real history. So they teach a bunch of fairy tales. They teach the Pilgrims and Christopher Columbus, all this fake stuff. And what you do is you learn it, you learn the real stuff by just like, oh wow, so Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898 had a bunch of angry white people that weren't happy to see Wilmington have a mixed race of politicians running it. It was the most successful city in North Carolina, so they decided to go and kill everybody. And you learn about Tulsa, and you learn about Rosewood, and all this different stuff. And you know that's that's the burden with being Black in America, is you're taught an education that is not in your best interest, and then you spend your adulthood having to relearn, having to learn um, the history that you should have been taught. And so I think that there is a reason why, that's one of the reasons, the systemic reasons why we find ourselves falling behind while others are being pushed forward into the front and sort of fall into success. So it's really interesting, but I am so thankful for moving here, and this is home. So I will always consider Boston and San Francisco home too. I will consider LA home, but this is home, definitely.
that's really interesting. And yeah, it's I guess it is sort of different, sort of like um being in Boston than being in the South. It's kind of like when you're in the South, you're kind of confronted with the sort of like specters of the past, sort of blatantly, more so than I guess up north.
Yeah, but it's interesting because one of the earliest record of a slave patrol that I have found was Charlestown, Massachusetts,
Mhm,
which I remember as a kid, like, don't go to Charlestown if you're Black.
mhm.
Oh. But the earliest record of slave patrol that I knew of was Charlestown, and slave patrols developed into police officers. So there you go. I
And
think
oh, go on.
Boston Boston is the south of the North. That's what they call it at that point.
I thought New Hampshire was the well. Somebody said that New Hampshire is the Florida of the North. I don't know.
It might be.
But I guess Massachusetts could be the entire South because I get it is bigger than New Hampshire. That I think it tracks.
Uh,
And
it's just that all around the country, people are like, "Oof, be Black in Boston." Yeah, I mean, there is seriously, there is an amazing TV show of what it's like to be Black in Boston. Like it's a very interesting thing. And you always hear from athletes of what it's like to be black in Boston, but it's interesting. And believe me, again, I love Boston. But it is, it's you have to do some mental gymnastics to sort of, justify a lot of the foolishness that goes on. I think.
Yeah, I was really apprehensive about moving here, and I thought maybe no more than a year, and that was almost 3 years ago. But when I tell people that professionally, like I work with more Black people than I've worked with anywhere else, or that I know more Black people than I've known anywhere else, people are like, that is not true. But um, I don't know. It surprises me in that way. But
It's funny that you say that because in every other city, you're like, oh, you're in Boston. And I say, listen, I've been to more like black businesses and places in Boston than ever in like San Francisco and stuff like that. So um, yeah. So I find myself defending it more than I make fun of it. But also you got to make fun of it.
yeah, and do you think we'll see um North Carolina in the second season of Woke, or is this gonna just be
Oh, no. It's, I, that would be season 12.
okay? And you said you like ducked out of the writers' room like at the moment. Can you tell us like what you all were discussing or working on or
Yeah, I think we were breaking episode 6. And it's you know what? It's the theme of the theme of this next season is going to be the commodification of woke. It's going to be like, oh, like, it's in a company's best interests to be woke, and basically the co-option of that and how our hero is tainted by it. So um, it's very interesting, but it's going to be a neat deep dive, and we're going to learn more about all the characters and have some fun, and yeah, it will it will have all the stuff that worked in season 1 and more. Um, it'll be fun.
and what did you learn from season one that you were sort of like carrying over to season two that makes the experience a little easier or a little more familiar, if at all?
Well, yeah, you can't. There is no class that you can take to that will substitute trial by fire. So when you go through it and see all the new moving parts, everything that has to go into making a season of a show. It's crazy. It's amazing and crazy and stressful. But you just sit there. Like there were many times where I would just sit there and I'd be like, you know what? We're just making television. Like we're not saving the world. Like we're not. Nobody's dying from this. It's just television. And that's the thing. I think just as long as you just understand, you don't just think that it's so important and like that you just freak out. It's just it's just silly jokes ultimately. If I can make people laugh, that's like the first priority. And then if I can make them laugh and think at the same time, then I'm good to go.
And it's not just silly jokes. Um, it's, I guess, a little more than that.
Yeah, I mean satire. There's plenty of satire.
And we just have like a few minutes left. So I guess like my final question would be like, what are you working on right now, comic book or not comic book wise, but comic wise? Um, and then I guess you can add anything else you'd want to add.
There's a couple of things. I do the K Chronicles and Think as my regular strips, and you can follow those on Patreon. I have a Patreon page. It's Keith Knight, like the character Keef Knighc. I'm also about to put out a new Think collection, but my main goal is finishing the graphic novel about my time as a Michael Jackson impersonator. So that's a priority. And the nice thing is I just talked to a publisher, so I may not have to put it out myself, which is nice. So it will be in bookstores. But and then the other thing really is season two. Season two is rolling up, and I'm doing my slideshows. I'm doing a big slideshow next week for the Civil Rights Museum in Atlanta. So that's going to be really cool. And I'm also doing a virtual, it just kills me. I'm doing a virtual book signing in New Orleans. So people can go into this place and buy a po' boy, and then they'll get a free book. So they're going to be eating. I want them to convince me why their po' boy is better than an oyster po' boy, which is my favorite. So, but yeah, I'm just trying to make it fun because I'm just gonna be sad watching everybody eating.
Wait, how do you do a virtual book signing?
I know. Well, that's it. I'm gonna sit there on a laptop and watch everybody eat decent food.
Oh, have you signed the books already and they're there? And
My co-author is gonna be there, and
okay.
I think he's gonna forge my signature.
Okay.
I
This is
don't know.
the first time I've heard of a virtual book signing, so I'm really fascinated about like the mechanics of that. But oh man, that's really
Yeah, like I mean, it's this whole thing is a double-edged sword, right? Like Zoom is great because we've been able to have these virtual events. I just look forward to the time where, and this will probably remain permanent, which is even when cons go back to being live, there's going to be a virtual component. So people from around the world who can't get to Boston to get to the Comics and Color Festival are going to be able to check in virtually for interviews and panels and stuff like that. So I'm just looking forward to meeting people again. I want to screen the show with an audience. I have yet to see it with an audience. Like that's what I want to do.
well, when would season two come out? Because we only have 2 minutes, but when does
It's
season
season two. It's tentative right now, but we think it's going to be in November, maybe. Um, so we're not. I think it's going to be November though.
are you
So,
hoping for in-person screenings then?
oh, totally, totally. I like. I hope to do it in the summer for season one. Like, there's a nice indie theater here that this indie theater rebuilt, like it was already closing down last summer for I mean last spring for to rebuild it. And so the timing of COVID was perfect because it was shutting down anyway. So they were able to rebuild, and then just it's this great little theater. um, so hopefully I'll be able to do some screenings in there and have a proper release party.
I hope that happens too. Well, Keith, thank you so much for talking to me, and good luck and stay well.
Yeah, you too, Quincy, and thank you. I appreciate everybody inviting me, and hopefully we can, you know, do this all in person next year.
And thanks for tuning in, everybody.